be Citibank and Coca-Cola and all these other multinational corporations. They just dictate to the drones. That's what we are. We're drones.
Major corporations of the world control 80% of the
There
resources.
you go. So is that freedom? But is that freedom?
No, but that is...
Do we have economic freedom when 80% of the wealth is controlled by less than 5% of the population in this country? Is that freedom? When Helmsley can say only the little people pay taxes, and then the big people punish her for spilling the beans by making her pay taxes.
Scenario, you're taking the
I don't think it's
middle class
extreme,
America pays taxes. You and I pay taxes.
Yeah, but rich people don't pay taxes. Corporations get welfare.
Yeah, well,
corporations are on welfare. They're complaining about black people in Watts, and the biggest multinational corporations in this country are being subsidized. They complain about Mexican people. Abuses. This is written into the system.
We don't even have a system. These are abuses.
It's written into the system. They're not abuses.
Well, I think, you see, the point is that is the freedom, that this system evolves freely. In the process, you are seeing some of the dark side of it, and that needs to be corrected. You have the freedom to do that. Whereas, where in the world outside do you see that?
I just don't believe there's freedom in this country.
Okay, so we have a disagreement.
I mean, I would say, and to be fair, I would say, in my experience in the world, and I really mean this, the freest place I've been was in the Sahara Desert, and I mean that. And I would say that in America, there is a modicum of freedom.
At least I got you to that point.
All right.
So
no, I'll say that. There is a freedom for us to talk. In a lot of countries in the world, we can't even have this discussion.
Yes.
And I accept that. There's a freedom also for dissent in this country, yes. Although if the dissent gets to a level where it becomes actually a threat to the overall structure of this society, that dissent is usually eliminated with extreme prejudice. Assassination is part and parcel of every political power on this planet. There is no political power that does not eliminate opponents, including this country. They eliminate internally and externally. And to deny that is simply to deny all of the evidence.
Well, I think we will have some disagreements.
So I prefer, and I'm glad that there are things that I can do in this country, but there are also trends in this country, and I think one of the real tragedies of the Americans is that they don't believe that tyranny can come to this country. They don't believe that, and in a way, much of it has already happened.
It is. I mean, if you listen to...
Like Grider, who will tell the people.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, William Grider, is that his name? Mm-hmm. Who wrote Globalization is what, Ready or Not?
No, what's his name? Not Gardel. The name will come to me. Anyway,
in any case, I mean, that's his point, is that this country, people don't realize what's happened.
No,
Gore Vidal, he's a very intelligent person he is in the power nexus, in that he's from...
He was, I think.
No, in the sense that he hobnobs with these people. He hobnobs with these people. And here's a person who has really been very concerned at the undermining of the Constitution of the United States for a long time. And this is not extreme right-wing. I mean, there's a right-wing element in this country that has been talking about this, conspiracy theories and all this. Where's the conspiracy? I mean, where it's blatant. I don't see any conspiracy. Anybody that has an ounce of brains, all they have to do is look around them and wonder why. Wonder why when they go to the store, they're buying things they've been programmed to buy.
What you are doing, interestingly, is really from the perspective of one who has lived in the other world, who has lived with less freedom.
So was I. 10 years I spent in the Muslim world.
10 years in exile is not, 50 years that somebody else living in Pakistan or some other part of the so-called Muslim world is living. So freedom from our perspective, which I am offering here, may have a different meaning. Here, you have had the excesses. You have been fed and bred on all of these freedoms that we take to be granted. And therefore, you have come to the point of taking a view that the abuses
I mean,
are
Doctor, I
overwhelming.
feel that's an unfair assessment, and I'll tell you why. Because I have lived in the Muslim world, and I lived in Algeria, I've lived in Morocco, I've lived in the Middle East, I've traveled in many parts of the world, and I've seen the bad side and I've seen the good side. And all I am saying is that I think that outside of war zones and outside of terrible places, I think the tragedies of much of the Muslim world are the Muslims themselves. And I think that constantly blaming the governments and blaming the tyrannies, that's just a poor excuse. I mean, I think that we need to stop doing that. And I think that the Americans as well. I think that blaming government for all these problems and whining about all these things. No, I think that the American people have to take responsibility for themselves.
Absolutely.
I think we have to stop supporting the forces in this country that are
Yes.
undermining
Yes.
quote-unquote democracy in this country,
Well,
because they're undemocratic forces. They're forces that are bent on manipulating people, and they're multinational, they're supranational.
Yes.
They don't hold allegiance to any country. They have no sense of patriotism. They have no sense of love of the people that they come
No,
from.
I think you're pointing out, things which are factual, with concerns which are factual. Chomsky has written so much about any of these issues. I mean, even the idea that America is the biggest sort of rogue nation now in his argument, and he's pointing out this, power-driven policies of our country which are tied to the economics, which is fine. Now, looking at Islam, which is facing these ideological challenges and challenges of more new ideas that will come, how do you assess the capacity of Islam to come out, come out victorious, quote unquote, in this ideological war, when you see that in fact there is worsening due to our insistence only to form rather than to substance?
Well, I would say, one, that the Islam itself is the only moral force. And I really believe this. It is the only moral force that is not spent. And as for the Muslims, that's another matter. I don't want to bring the Muslims into this. And I don't think that is a cliche. I think it's the truth. I think that Christianity has a power. It has a moral power. It has truth.
Enormous moral
yes,
power.
and it has truth in it. And I think Judaism has moral force and moral power, and it has truth in it. And I think that most of the world religions, including Hinduism and Buddhism, have truth in them and have moral power. But I would say that there are so many elements within those traditions that are no longer congruous with the modern world, with what we know today. I think to believe in Christianity today is, in a sense, to surrender my own intellectual and rational understanding of the world that I live in. And I think there would be Christians who would say, exactly, that's what you have to do. You have to make that leap of faith. But what I'm saying is surrendering it in the worst form. In other words, that I'm expected to believe certain things that I can't believe in them. Not just because they're no longer rationally acceptable for me to believe, but because they have been disproven through very radical intellectual research and
again,
discovery. But I would say that Islam, and to put it in horrible postmodern terms, I would say that the world religions have been deconstructed. But I would say that Islam, true Islam,
is preserved.
it is preserved.
Right. No, that I would
And they
agree
do
with.
have a problem there. They're attempting to do it. They've attempted to do it with the hadith literature. The Quran, though, they have a real problem. They're trying to now create doubt about the validity of the sources of the Quran, etc., etc. But deal with the text.
Yeah. Now, I think now you bring me to sort of closure on this, because I think as we sit here now, how do you see our interaction or relationship with people from other faiths, especially Jews and Christians, who also have these concerns.
Yeah.
I mean, you will agree with me that they have
They have
similar
those concerns, absolutely.
I mean, for instance, the relations between Jews and Muslims, they have been so strained.
They're strained,
which is really unnecessary, because there isn't